Welcome back to the channel. So, guys, remember when love and religion used to go hand in hand? I mean, when religion was about love, when you taking pride or satisfaction or having happiness related to your religion had nothing to do with hating another religion. Remember that? Yeah, I don't either. That was a long time ago. But here's the thing, romance in Hindi cinema has always been connected to religion in some way, you know. Whenever two lovers defied their parents, defied society, they would always say, oh, parda nahi jab koi khuda se. You know, it's like what we are doing is approved by God or it is close to divinity. And that is why love, which is not acceptable to society, is acceptable on screen because this romance is beyond the one thing that society respects, which is religion. But today, I really want to talk about the complexity and nuance that this sort of incorporation of religion into romantic narratives brought into Hindi cinema. And specifically, let's focus on worship, the act of worship, the places of worship. Let's look at how these places of worship broke all the barriers of religion and brought people together irrespective of which religion they belong to. Let's start with Mujhse Dosti Karoge. Remember that Hrithik Roshan, Kareena Kapoor era? This film is from that time. So very briefly, in this film, Hrithik Roshan is called Raj, Rani Mukherjee is called Pooja, and Kareena Kapoor is called Tina. And Hrithik Roshan, right from when he's a child, he's attracted to the pretty girl who's supposed to be Kareena Kapoor. His family moves to London and he leaves his two friends, Pooja and Tina, behind. On the way, he tells Tina to write to him, but Tina is deeply uninterested in writing to him. But Pooja, who does not care that Raj has already friend-zoned her, writes to him regularly. But because Pooja knows that Raj is only interested in hearing from Tina, she signs off on the emails as Tina. I mean, yeah, it was pretty weird when I saw it as a child, but now it kind of makes sense because she knew that Raj would not respond to her if she wrote to him as Pooja. Kind of makes you wonder if this whole film is even worth it. But, well. So anyway, coming to the main thing. During these email exchanges, Raj tells Pooja, who he thinks is Tina, that he goes to church on every Sunday, and there he randomly started humming a tune, which is actually the title track of the film. Like that. So Pooja takes this tune, memorizes it, and she starts going to church every Sunday and she starts singing it at church. Mind you, these are all Hindus. Their families are properly, they worship Hindu gods, etc. Anyway, Raj returns one day to India. He ignores Pooja, goes to Tina. Pooja is heartbroken, still in the friend zone. Honestly, it's her fault, but what can we do? Slowly, Raj actually starts to realize that he kind of gets along better with Pooja, and Tina is kind of not really interested, but she likes the flirtation and the attention. Then he's supposed to go back to London for something. Interestingly, at this point, after he says bye to Tina, she actually turns to a Hindu deity and says, "Tumhe usse वापस लाना ही पड़ेगा." It's kind of funny that yeah, your wish is going to be granted, but in what way? Then he has a very long rendezvous with Pooja, and then he leaves, and then Pooja just appears in London and she's brought gobi ke parathe, blah blah blah. He starts showing her around London and they finally go to church one day. At this church, now you'll see that Pooja is wearing this white salwar kameez, okay? So somewhere the costume itself, while the white is very representative of like a Christian bride, the fact that it's a salwar kameez maintains her Indianness for some reason, which is also considered appropriate for a place of worship. At this point, Rani Mukherjee starts humming the tune, and suddenly Raj realizes that, oh my god, she's the one I've been writing to all along. Now, why have they picked a church here? Let's talk about that for a second. Churches are huge. They are usually empty on the inside if you're not going there on a Sunday, right? So there's a sense of a bigger attachment while also being pretty lonely or alone or in a private or personal space with God. And the size of the church also lends itself to that one most important aspect of this scene, which is the tune which Pooja starts humming, and Raj realizes that, oh, this is who it is. Now, of course, Raj begins to circle her like a vulture and interrogate her. The intensity of the scene really builds because of the architecture of the church. It kind of brings to mind the way we look at, say, an adalat or a court. It's like God's court right there, and it has that size. It is not quite like a temple, which is a little more crowded in the daytime, or it's a little smaller in size. It can be dramatic on a stormy night, but this is not that kind of a situation. The whole thing gets resolved when Pooja tells him that you didn't really see me for me, you just wanted Tina, so I had to pretend, and you didn't even notice me at the railway station when you got back. And then, they kind of reconcile in a strange way. Then Raj tells her something very important. The fact that they have had this revelation in a church means that God wants them to be together, even though he's supposed to go back and marry Tina, okay? And when Pooja says that, no, this is all wrong, Raj actually goes to the front and he puts his hands on these candles that are burning at that time, and it's very dramatic. The candles are actually supposed to be a kind of parallel with diyas in Hindu culture. So then suddenly it is like Agni ko Sakshi and all that stuff, and then she comes back and they kind of don't know what to do. And eventually what Raj says comes true, because when Rani Mukherjee is getting married to someone else, Sindoor randomly falls on her head in the presence of God, and it looks like God themselves have put this on her head, as that sindoor was supposed to go to Kareena Kapoor, but now it's on her head. It's a very tacky scene. Turns out that all the gods in the universe were colluding to bring these two together. I think in this entire film, what they have shown is that God isn't Hindu or Christian or Muslim. God is just one big entity controlling these fates and these romances. Every god in the universe will bring us together if we're supposed to be together. Think about the time Rifat was praying in the hostel room and she said that Anjali is about to get married in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and the younger Anjali at this point actually goes and starts praying to Allah, and she doesn't know how to read namaz, but she sits down in that position and she does sajda, and suddenly Rifat tells them that bachchi ki dua kubul hui hai, your prayers have been answered. Karan Johar would never do that today. Making a Hindu kid pray to a Muslim god. Are you insane? This sort of plurality of religion, this tolerance, secularism has always been there, ingrained in our cinema, but especially in love stories. Now let's come to everyone's favorite, Veer Zara. Of course, the topmost layer is very clear to everyone. India and Pakistan. How are we gonna unite these two lovers? But let's look at the other layers. The religious layer in this film is actually not weighing too heavily. It's pretty quietly accepted. It is never discussed. It is always about India and Pakistan. So the film actually starts with Zara's nanny dying. She is a Sikh woman. So Zara has actually gone to Nankana Sahib. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Nankana Sahib is supposed to be the birthplace of Guru Nanak. So she's gone there to bring Amrit, which is a religious thing for the Sikhs. And she hopes that this Amrit will help her baby get some strength to live longer. So she's gone to get this Amrit from Nankana Sahib. And then once she reaches home and she overhears her mother talking about how baby is going to die, it is pouring rain. And in Veer Zara, rain has a very big role to play when it comes to showing the outpouring of emotion. You've seen this rain in Main Yahan Hoon, the song where at the end she realizes the intensity of her love for Veer, and even in the song that we are going to discuss, which is Aaya Tere Dar Pe, but we'll come to that later. So in this pouring rain, Zara is devastated. She's standing there with the Amrit and she goes to her baby. She says, "Here, I've brought this Amrit for you. You're going to be okay." But baby says says, no, I am dying. What you need to do is when I die, take my ashes to Kiratpur in India and make sure that I go in peace, basically. The moment she realizes that Bebe is dead, the Amrit spills from her hand. And in most films or Hindi serials, for example, it has to be a really standout moment for religious objects to be dropped. It has to mean that बहुत बड़ा अपशगुन हो गया or some huge misfortune is about to take place, okay? Or that something terrible has already happened. So here, the level of the tragedy warrants this falling of the Amrit to the floor. So she embarks on this journey for this Sikh lady on a Sikh pilgrimage where she's going to immerse these ashes. And that's how she, of course, meets Veer, which is Shah Rukh Khan, on the way. Now, if we step back and look at the present, where Shah Rukh Khan is actually in jail because of his love for Zara, and Rani Mukherjee is speaking to him and taking care of him, and he's being mistreated by the guards. And Rani Mukherjee points out that he is Kaidi number 786, just like Coolie number 786 from Diwar, that was Amitabh Bachchan. So here she says that, this is a sign from God, Khuda, that he is Khuda ka banda, or he is a man of God, or he's someone that God loves, basically. Again, here you have someone telling you that it doesn't matter what his religion is. The fact that God is on his side, truth is on his side, is what matters. So here God is meant to represent justice, where the truth and justice is on Veer's side. Here I really want to bring your attention to something very interesting. After Veer Zara's whirlwind romance, Zara comes home and she's all sad about him, and she's asking her mother, who is Kiran Kher, if her husband would die for her, and Kiran Kher is like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'll die for him, but you can't ask me if he'll die for me. That's a terrible thing to say. And she's like, is it because you're unsure that he would? And Kiran Kher says, look, men can't love the way women can. Now, at the time when I heard it, when I was young, I thought, that's weird. I mean, you love someone, you love them. But now it makes a lot of sense. Now it makes a lot more sense, because realizing that the way society raises men is very different from the way it raises women. We are actually allowed to have a greater range of emotions than men do. So because men do not emote as deeply, they many a times, not always, many a times don't attach as emotionally to things as we do. So it makes sense what she said here. Now I get it. So at the time it just sounded like but now it's very clear what she meant. But at this point, Zara says that there's someone in Hindustan who would die for me. And, so Veer, Shah Rukh Khan, has once again raised the bar for all lovers, for all men to aspire to. So now Kiran Kher says कि तेरी तकदीर रजा के साथ बंध चुकी है, अब उसे ना तू बदल सकती है ना तेरा खुदा. It's very interesting. She said Tera Khuda, because both their Khudas are technically the same, right? It's Allah. But if she says Tera Khuda, here Khuda actually represents love, because Preeti Zinta was just talking about undying devotion, love for which you can sacrifice yourself, and Kiran Kher says that this love actually doesn't exist in the world of men. So here, Preeti Zinta's love is the Khuda, which is against Kiran Kher's Khuda, which does not believe in this sort of a romantic idea. Now we come to my favorite portion of the film, which is Aaya Tere Dar Pe, the song, where Veer has actually quit his job and come to Pakistan to take Zara with him, because he has realized that she loves him as much as he does. Now he arrives at a dargah where Zara and her to-be in-laws and her whole family are there. They have already arrived at the dargah, okay? So they cross this pathway and they come to the main shrine area, and there are flowers all around her. If you really think about it, the way she looks at the grave or the mazar, it almost looks like it symbolizes the death of her own romance, sort of. That's just the vibe I get from all these flowers surrounding her, and she has this sad face. The song, of course, the lyrics go Aaya Tere Dar Pe Deewana, which is why a dargah is such an important religious place, because a dargah is not really a mosque, right? It is the shrine of a Sufi saint. And here, technically, in India especially, people from all religions are welcome. Unlike a mosque where many parts of a mosque would not allow women to enter, here in the dargah, you do get to access most of the parts as a woman. So a dargah is a slightly more equal place, especially because it has music, it has Sufi music, it has qawwalis, which are actually looked down upon in Islam. So here in the dargah, it becomes a more secular space, which is why, even though it is an Islamic place, it welcomes Veer, who now stands at the other edge of the pathway. The interesting thing about Sufi songs is also that they are so romantic in nature. Even though they are sung for these Sufi saints, they are very intensely about love. This intensely romantic song is playing, and he walks in wearing black, which really sets him apart from everyone else present at the shrine. You will notice that the singers are wearing black dupattas because the mood of their song actually represents the feelings of Veer's heart. And of course, the moment he arrives at the correct spot, rain falls abundantly at this dargah, and Zara turns and sees him, and they meet right in the middle of that pathway. It's like they have met between those two nations, and this is a scene that happens at the end of the film as well, where they meet in that border area. This is also a part of that poster. Whenever they meet, it's like an in-between space, because their love is supposed to transcend the boundaries of a nation. It is not bound by anything. It is in no man's land. That's what this pathway also represents. So this particular space in the dargah where these two stand is a place where only love and God exist. At this point, Kiran Kher's character has been proven wrong, because Zara's khuda has come through. Zara's love has come through, and she has won. In this world, God can mean justice, he can or she can mean love, and can mean truth at the end of the day. Love and God go hand in hand, even in this narrative. Now the next film I'm going to discuss is a bit more wacky. It's Ajab Prem Ki Gajab Kahani. Or is it Gazab? It's Gazab, isn't it? Yeah. It's from a time when rom-coms were still a thing. So Ajab Prem Ki Gajab Kahani is, of course, it is Gazab, yes, I know. Is, of course, the story of Prem, who is in love with Jenny, Ranbir Kapoor, Katrina Kaif, and the religious aspect here may be very simple, that Jenny is from a Christian family and he is Hindu. It's set in a very small mountain town. I think it's shot in Ooty, and it's very metropolitan looking, but Prem is not a native English speaker. He doesn't speak English quite so well, so he has more Hindi belt sensibilities, and for that reason he feels like he's not really at Jenny's level, so he's falling short on that end, because as we know, English is associated with elitism in this country, or just generally being more educated, more important, etc. Now, right from the start, you'll see that religion is everywhere in the film. For example, when he sings Prem ki naiya hai Ram ke bharose, there is not only is he singing about Ram being responsible for his Prem ki naiya or his love life, there is actually a Ram Leela troupe behind him singing with him. So he is appealing to the Hindu gods to help him get this Christian girl. It's important to note here that Jenny is an adopted daughter of her family. This is going to be relevant later, so we'll come back to this. Prem's friends actually convince him that it is important that he adopts Jenny's lifestyle to make her happy, and because she's Christian, she must be non-vegetarian and she must be eating a lot of meat, so he should start eating meat so that he can actually eat the same things she does when they go out on dates. So they take him to a Muslim chicken shop where he's eating chicken. Now imagine this scene in today's India, making this film. Would that happen? Hindu ka dharm bhrasht kar rahe ho, etc. No, it would not. Of course, he's not been eating meat for religious reasons, and his father sees him eating meat and tells him that you've destroyed everything, dharm bhrasht kar diya, etc. And Prem's mom points out that you do sell meat in your own shop, and his dad says dharm alag, dhanda alag, which is so interesting because this country runs on this rule, you know. Yeah, if we catch poor Muslim people herding cattle, we accuse them of cow slaughter. But then when we have to export something, we become one of the biggest exporters of beef. So dharma alag, dhanda alag, right? Anyway, forget about the politics of this country for a second. Now, this really hits Prem, okay? And he feels like he's done something terrible. His father is angry with him. So, for a second, just assume his father represents Hinduism, Hindu deities, etc. He is sad and morose and feeling bad about what he's done when he passes a church. So he enters the church and he goes and introduces himself to Jesus in English. Because in this film, Christianity itself is associated with Western culture for the same reasons that Indians still want to send their children to Catholic school. So he introduces himself in English, in broken English, and then tells him that he is actually friends with the guy from the Shiv Mandir in the next gully. So it's almost like he has got a scolding from his dad, say Bholenath, because he says Bholenath is going to be angry with me for eating meat. And he's gone to the neighbor's house because the neighbor is kind and the neighbor is always ready to give him shelter when his parents get angry at him. That's the kind of vibe I get here when he talks to Jesus and says that my dad is angry with me and Bholenath is angry with me. Now, can you please set me up with Jenny because I really like her? So in this moment, just as Jenny is an adoptive daughter of her family, Prem kind of becomes this adoptive son of Jesus. He is seeking something in church which he cannot get in a temple because he has defied the rules set by society. But let's be honest, Bholenath would not be angry with you for eating meat. He does indulge in certain substances himself. And you know, his wife in her Kali form, she's like really into meat and blood. So yeah. Before I stir any more controversy, this is what Prem does. He adopts Jesus as a way to find something in life which he believes he cannot achieve through his own rigid religious home structure. Which is not to say that he is rejecting his own religion. It just means that he is finding what other religions have to offer. Something new, something good, something more open-minded. Now, this is really interesting because at the end of the movie, when Katrina Kaif has realized that Prem is the one she loves and Prem is actually already on his way leaving town, at this point, Jesus actually appears to him, pretends to be an actor, and says that he will guide him to wherever he needs to go. And Jesus is holding a lamb in his hand. Of course, Jesus is considered God's lamb. And he drives him to church where Jenny is praying inside to Jesus. And if you look at that little tempo which Jesus brought him in, it says Good Shepherd. And Good Shepherd also represents Jesus, right? Jesus suddenly hands him the lamb and disappears and he's like, what happened? And then the lamb jumps out and runs into the church because, again, the lamb itself also represents Jesus. And it leads him to Katrina and they unite and they're happy and he hears Jesus's voice saying, see, I set you up like you had asked me. So it's wonderful. It's like he reached out to whatever entities there are in the universe and Jesus helped him out, you know, and Bholenath didn't exactly discard him either because I'm sure they are all in cahoots. And finally, at the end, they actually get married at the marriage registrar's office, which is the most secular place there is, right? And then Prem gives Jenny a peck on the cheek and his dad is really angry about this PDA and Prem says, अरे पापा क्रिश्चियन लोग में चलता है. So ultimately what happens is that everything Prem associated Christianity with, whether it's elitism or westernization, etc., it comes undone. It turns out that it's not all true because ultimately it's about love. He feels love. His heart is true. He feels he is honestly asking God for something that he wants or deserves or is working hard for. And so the gods reward him, irrespective of what religion he belongs to. And for Prem, finding Christianity or finding another religion or solace in another religion just becomes a way to find a leeway out of the restrictions of his own religion. You know what? I think all these films give us this vibe that in this country there is so much variety. Forget religion, think about food, anything, the geography, the clothes. There is so much to choose from. And once we accept that it's good to have this diversity, we can benefit from it so much instead of rejecting other religions because they don't have the same ideas that we do. Having a discourse with other religions and actually ultimately accepting that each religion was originally trying to preach about love and acceptance among all human beings, I think we'll have a better society and ultimately better films. Think about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you hate this format, I'm so sorry, but you will always have to put up with my face from now on because I think we are done with the clip after clip after clip video essay format, which is all scripted most of the time because I keep getting copyright strikes and takedowns. So we are not doing that anymore. I'm very sorry, but I hope you'll stick with me. I hope you like this format also. Let me know what you thought in the comments about this video and what is your favorite romantic film in India, and do you miss the rom-com genre? Please let me know in the comments and I will see you next time. Bye.